Good afternoon, guys. We're ready to get started. Ladies and gentlemen, we're ready to get started. No. Welcome to the District 4 Town Hall meeting with me. My first Town Hall meeting that I've attended, or that since I've been the commissioner of your district. Here with Alex Ray. I don't know if everyone has the agenda. We're going to get started right now. We have the Sheriff Gualtieri here today. We're going to get him up first so that they can get out of here. Alex, I don't know if you'd like to make some introduction statements.
Well, I just want to make sure we recognize the elected officials that are here. Mayor Petrillo, Commissioner Mike Grill, Commissioner Chris Krause over there. Yeah, I think that's what we have today. And so we're going to try to get the agenda moving. As you see the agenda, we have a lot of items to cover today. So if when we're covering an item, we have a specific question on that item, we're trying to answer that then. And then we'll leave general questions towards the end. But as the Commissioner said, we really have the honor to have the county sheriff today here with us, Bob Carey. And he's going to talk about police coverage, police presence on the beach and in the Pasadena area. I know that a lot of issues and concerns from the neighborhood. So with that, yeah.
Thanks, Alex. Good evening, everybody. Oh, do you want me to stay down here as close as I can to the microphone? So I'll do that. I'll follow the directions. But as Alex said, I'm Bob Gualtieri. I'm the Pinellas County Sheriff. I'm happy to be here with you. St. Pete Beach is a very important community to us. We've been doing the policing here since 2013. 24 different cities in Pinellas County, and 13 of them contract with us to be the police provider. For St. Pete Beach was the last one that we took over, if you will, and the city decided to contract with us. So it's hard to believe it's been 10 years. And so I wanted to really hear from you all. I've been talking to some of the commissioners, I've been talking to Alex. I know there's some concerns, and some things have changed over the last few years as far as the model is concerned. And I think that I've had some discussions with the mayor earlier today, talked to some of the commissioners, and have some recommendations where we can increase presence, make sure that we're meeting all of the needs of the city, the needs of the residents. And there's a couple of things I think that are important in the context of public safety. Is hands down, 100% everybody needs to be safe, but also people need to feel safe, and they need to see a strong law enforcement presence. And if we do our jobs correctly, you thrive as a community. This community is built on tourism, it's built on people coming in, and we've seen it over many times in the state of Florida and even here to a degree in Pinellas County. When you have that perception that things aren't as safe and there isn't that strong law enforcement presence, then the word gets out and people don't come. And what you all want is you want all those people from up north to come down, not drive, okay? And to use the hotels, go to the businesses, and help your community just, again, thrive and flourish. So some of the things that we've heard are the things that we hear really throughout the county, but especially out here in the beaches with traffic, with the ordinances, with dogs on the beach, with alcohol on the beach, with noise, and some of those other things. The staffing model we have right now here in St. Pete Beach, and again, it's changed a little bit over time. The staffing model we have right now is on day shift out here, is that we have 2 deputies and a sergeant. So in essence, 3 deputies. Now you think about that, from 6 o'clock in the morning till 6 o'clock at night, we have those 3. And that's all the way from the Johns Pass Bridge in Treasure Island, all the way down to the southern tip of Pass Grill. That's 3. That's a lot of people to cover all the calls for service, to be out on the beach, do traffic enforcement, to do all the things that we need to be doing. So that's, quite honestly, it's a little thin. So one of the things that we also do is we bring in another deputy at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and that deputy works from 3 o'clock in the afternoon to 3 o'clock in the morning, and they change shifts at 6 o'clock, and you got another 3 coming in. So at the max time, you have 4, plus you have 3 community policing deputies out here. And so in order for them to get out on the beach, to do traffic, to deal with the homeless issues you're having, to deal with all these other problems speaking in the neighborhoods, is that I think you probably need a little bit more coverage, and working on some models that will be some cost-effective models and some flexibility, hopefully, to give you a little bit more of that coverage. But I want to assure you that the numbers show, and again, the numbers only tell part of it, because the numbers show that we are responding to the complaints. We are addressing the problem. But we hear a lot from people is they're not seeing it. Well, that's a problem, because we need to be dealing with the problem and addressing it, but people need to feel that we're addressing it and have the coverage and see the cops out there, because it gets to being safe and feeling safe. So just to give you an example, is that one of the things I'm talking to Alex about the concerns that have been expressed about dogs on the beach. So between March 7th and July 11th, deputies did 139 directed patrols on the beach. And they're out there, they're looking for it. They're trying to be responsive to the concerns and to the complaints about dogs on the beach. But they're out there in these 139 directed patrols. That means the deputies blocked out their time. They purposely went out there, they're patrolling, looking for the dogs on the beach. And they're spending that committed time out there doing that. And those 139 times, they only saw 11 violations. And when they saw those 11 violations, is that there were no repeat offenders. So what we do with all violations, whether it's ordinance violations for dogs on the beach, for traffic unless it's serious, for other violations, is that when we see somebody that's committed a violation, we document it in a system, and so that we have a record of the warning being given to that person. And probably a good thing to do, I think it's a good thing to do, is that you warn people. You want education. You want people to comply. We're not interested in issuing citations and dinging people with big fines. So we get them to comply by warning them and educating them about it. But If it happens a second time or it happens a third time, well, you didn't get the message, so now we're going to issue a citation. So as an example of what I just told you, those 139 directed patrols, 11 violations and no repeat offenders. Down here on Gulf Way between April and July is that we did, for speed, we did 52 directed patrols, and it only resulted in 6 violations. We put the speed trailers out to try and measure speed. On Pass-a-Grille Way, again, 54 directed patrols with 30 violations, 4 citations and 26 warnings. So I can give you a lot of data about also what's happening up there with these people that are getting off the trolley in the homeless population. I can tell you the deputies are on it. They're out there. They're issuing trespass warnings. When people, a trespass warning is this. So whether it's at the county park or whether it's at Publix or wherever it is, if somebody is at a place and it's open to the public, they have a right to be there. But they can be told to leave either by us if it's a county park or if it's the Publix by management, et cetera. They can delegate that, and we can tell them, don't come back here. If you come back here, you're going to get arrested. So we tell them, we issue that trespass warning. If they come back, they're arrested. And we are arresting those people when they do come back. So the problem is that you got a lot of new people that keep taking the trolley and coming out here. The community policing deputies are spending their time at the bus stop. They're dealing with those people, but we need to keep doing it, and we need to get them out of here. As I had a discussion with the mayor earlier, I'm a big believer, and I know it works, and I've been doing this for a very long time, is that when you have a problem and you want to solve the problem for people that are causing angst, make their life miserable. And so greet them at the bus stop when they get off is that this is St. Pete Beach. You're not welcome here. And we're going to make your life where you don't want it, so you're not coming out here. You don't need these people out here. You don't want them out here. And we're going to make an effort to and continue to make an effort. But as I was telling the mayor, we were having a discussion earlier, I think that we need to look at some alternatives to add in a flexible way, not necessarily full-time deputies, but through some options that we have to increase it at a cost-effective way and a minimal cost to the city. But you probably need some help out here because, again, those 3 deputies that are running calls, whether it's car wrecks or whether it's calls to the hotels or calls to the various businesses, they can't be everywhere all the time. And I can tell you that all the information shows they're out there, they're doing it, and they're running these calls. So that's kind of where I see it. Happy to answer any questions, address any concerns that you all have. Yeah, go ahead.
Your dispatchers need to know that barbecuing is not allowed on the beach.
Okay.
We called one day when somebody was barbecuing and had quite a discussion of what do they look like, how many. It's like there's one person on the beach barbecuing, and then she said, well, they're allowed to barbecue on the beach. And I called the fire marshal, and she said, absolutely not.
See, this is what I'm hearing is consistent. This is a consistent theme is you'll never know how many dogs are on the beach if you're not on the beach to see them.
Exactly.
You'll never know how many grills are on the beach unless you're on the beach to see them. And from what you're telling us, you guys are thin in your coverage right now because you're covered all the way up to TI, which I wasn't aware of. And there's probably a lot of people here who thought you guys went from, Lines Pass, North Lines Pass, down to Pass-a-Grille. That's a big stretch.
Three people for the entire city. And the city limit is TI Bridge all the way down. So it's a lot. So this, what I'm proposing, will address that. Because again, what you want and what you need to address that is they got to be out there more. They have to be out there dedicated. It has to be saturated so that they can spend that time and address those things that are of concern.
What we had talked about last couple of weeks was, and Sheriff Peltier was great about getting that, is getting the speed signs out here and an empty cruiser. I'm a big believer in optics and visibility. We don't always need a body. If we can just show a law enforcement presence by a vehicle, folks think that they're out here and they're minding their P's and Q's, so to speak.
Well, and getting them out on the street, I think this is too, the deputies don't have. So if they're in a cruiser and you want them out on the beach because you got people with grills, you got dogs, etc., is that if you're out there in a side-by-side in an ATV and you're out there in that, and a call comes in at 75th and Blind Pass because you got a wreck, then they got to get off the beach, you got to get in their car, but it doesn't work. They're just too thin. So this is where you got to have that dedicated presence. I think that it would also be helpful to see them out walking on Gulf Boulevard, get into the business community a little bit more, get into the businesses, and we can move on the city and with different issues in a more saturated way.
one more thing on what you was just talking about. One of the reasons why we have community police officers is because they know our specific rules. Because like he was saying, he covers the entire county, 22 cities, but each city has different rules. So when we engage with the community police officers, and if you get a dispatch person telling you that, tell them to transfer you to the community police officers and tell them to tell community police officers to go and deal with that. Because their idiosyncrasies like barbecuing on the beach, we know it's not allowed. The community police officers will know that, but the person that maybe dispatch doesn't know the rules for the 22 cities. So you can't really blame that. So we just trying to get the message to the right person.
Just educate me the difference between a cop and a community police.
Community police officers are cops, but they are dedicated to St. Pete Beach. When they come here, I think they have a minimum.
Are they the three?
Those are in addition to the patrol people that he has. There are 3 other community police officers. They work 4 days a week, 10-hour shifts, and they're kind of overlap.
So we really have 6 out here.
But not all the time.
But no, those 3 are not there all the time. Remember, they work 4-day shifts, so there are some days that we have 2, some days that we have 1.
So what you
so it kind of covers because they split it, right?
So on a Saturday, okay, on day shift, you'd have 3 deputies to run calls. Then, okay, on a Saturday, you'd have probably 2 community community policing deputies. But
they don't run calls.
They do, because they'll back them up. So when the 3 get backed up because the calls that are coming in and you get all the myriad of calls you get, they'll have to go handle those calls to back up those deputies. So when they're doing that, they're not sitting out there on the ATVs, they're not in the neighborhoods, they're not doing speed, they're not doing all the other things you want. Where with the model that we're talking about, where you bring people in on a kind of temporary hourly basis, the city would get to decide. And those people with that is that they are out there, they are dedicated to it. And you can be very flexible with this model because the city manager can say, okay, today, because of concerns and because of, we want to address this. So for the next 3 days, for 4 hours a day, we're going to put them out there looking for barbecue stuff, or we can do. So there, it's the community policing deputies are dedicated to deal with some of the issues, but again, when you take the size of this beach that you all have, and you take it all the way from the south end here past the Grove, all the way up to Upham and all the way going up, you put one person out there, it looks like an ant. All right, it looks like you don't have. So what you want to see is you want to see a whole bunch of this out there. You're not going to get that with 1 or 2. You're just not.
And that's it, Chris. Congratulations, first off. By the way, I have not seen you, so I'm happy to see you here. Secondly, it's been 10 years now since we've had these guys out. Should we consider adding more?
I think that's the recommendation.
Well, so my recommendation to you is let me just be direct, okay? Is that I don't think you need more cops with full-time deputies to respond to calls. What I think you need, and we had it before and it changed, is go back to this model. We call it through our secondary employment or off-duty detail model. And so the city comes up with a dollar amount that it wants to spend. We then will schedule with flexibility, direction of the city commission, the city manager, and we'll use that, the money. Dunedin uses it, Safety Harbor uses it, Oldsmar, other cities use it. It works out very well because it's a force multiplier that allows you to maximize personnel when you need it, and you're not stuck with the personnel when you don't. So I don't know, it sounds like you've been around for a while out here. When we took over policing out here at Safety Beach in 2013, the first year, the savings to the city was $4.5 million. And one of the reasons for that was because the city had to have a police department that was this big to staff for maximum peak periods. Not everything is maximum and peak periods. So we were able to contract it down and then fill in those times where you need that staffing for the maximum peak periods and to address things. And so you can scale it back when you don't need it. You can add it when you have. So it's a very cost-effective model to do that. So I do think you need more people out here. We need to be seen more. You need to see us more. We need to be doing more to address some of these specialized concerns that you have. And I think that's the effective model. And that's what I highly recommend to you all.
Well, Chris, who's doing that? Who's making that judgment call and putting it into place?
Well, it's the city. We're going to collectively decide on this once we have recommendations, which which it sounds like we're getting recommendations now based on the concerns and the issues that everybody has. Town hall to city to commission to action.
Well, ultimately, what I just heard is we have a contract with you that has a staff model funding.
Yes.
And we as, you as a government, for us, you guys need to decide what we need to be spending and potentially spending more to get more presence out.
Everything I'm hearing from the residents is we need more.
Well, I just want to understand.
I'm just trying to agree with it.
Is we can control this as a community or as a government by working with the existing contract. We're expanding the existing contract to get what we, as a community, are saying we need. Yes.
Absolutely, and the beauty of this is that you all are in total control of it, because when you're not adding the FTE, when you're not adding the full-time deputy who we have to hire, and you got to do startup costs, and you got to do it. So if something happens down the road and things are looking good, you say, okay, well, we're using, I'll just use a round number, we're using 100 hours a week. You know what? We're going to save some money. We're going to scale it back to 40 hours a week. Okay, great, no problem, because we can do that. We got enough people to work these things, and then 2 months later, something happens. Alex says, you know, for next week, we need to take it up because we got some special events. We need to take it up to 80 hours. Okay, we can do that. So that's why this model is really a great model, because it will give you what you need, maximum flexibility, which means maximum fiscal efficiency, because you're not stuck with staffing for peak periods when you don't need it. So I really think that this was, and what we would do is make sure, and we do this in other places, and you're right, is that the deputies need to know the community. You're not going to have, so your community policing deputies are assigned down here full time. You know their faces, you know that. The deputies will work down here to take calls. The deputies will be coming down here for that. Some of them you may know, some of you may not, but we're very careful about that. We educate them, make sure they know, make sure the supervisors know, and you'll get what you want out of it. And what you want out of it is increased presence, dealing with the problems, putting out the fires, no pun intended, and making sure that the needs are met and that the city is safe. And again, go back to this, feeling safe and being safe. Two different things, interrelated, but both very important. We can be a safe, St. Pete Beach is a safe community, but that doesn't mean that all of everybody feels that way in dealing with the problems. Now, people with girls on the beach isn't necessarily a safety issue, but it is a quality of life issue. It is what you don't want out here. You don't want the grills, you don't want the dogs, you don't want the alcohol. And we need to make sure that
it's an issue if they're barbecuing up next to the dunes.
And it is. So correct. It's what well, I guess what I'm saying, it's not violent crime. Okay? It's a problem, and we need to deal with it. And I think that this is my suggestion. Yes.
So I moved out here about 10 years ago, and I generally go to the beach almost every day. And there used to be a ATV or gator up and down, two guys. When I first moved down, I had and I took my name and my number. And then they disappeared. And I've been on the beach Sunday. And the alcohol on the beach, I got people coming with this of vodka, rum. So it is glass. It's not cans even. It's glass.
And those guys were doing that. And again, it is what it is. Okay, but we use the model that I'm talking about. We used to do down here. Okay, and those people who stopped you and that what you're talking about years ago was probably under that model. And so this is why it worked. And I can tell you the feedback I got from residents down here in the first few years was, oh my God, I haven't seen as many cops down here. We're saving a boatload of money. It was $4.5 million the first year. And I'm seeing more cops down here than I ever saw. And we're saving this. It's because we had a heavier presence. And that presence has been reduced by going to a different model. We need to go back to that model.
Just one more comment. I used to be young kid too. But bring these cases.
The best evidence is look at our garbage cans.
Yeah.
Well, and so, you know, I'm a believer, again, I'm a believer in you try and educate first and get people in. Every time that we, so from how many years ago was your encounter? 6, is that you're in our system. So, because every time we have an engagement with someone, we document it in the system called ADAMS, an acronym, put it in there so the deputies can be good decisions. Now, if you get a bunch of kids and they're rowdy and they're acting up and they got an attitude or, you know, something more than that, then they need a citation. They need to get, they need an awakening. But if you just get a couple kids, not causing any problem, just doing their thing, they got a white car or something, the deputy comes up and they're very polite and they just, well, we just didn't know, is that I think under those circumstances, the right thing to do is say, look, here's the law down here, here are the rules, here's what you don't do, pour it out, we document it in the system. If we never see them again doing that, then we've all won. But if an hour later, a day later, a week later, a month later, is that deputy comes in contact with them, they're all polite, everything's good, but they were warned before, now you need to get it. And that's the way I think all that enforcement should be, because it's just treating people right. But they can talk themselves into this. They can.
There's a sign on every walkover that says no dogs, no alcohol, no fires.
In a perfect world, I get it. Okay, is that everybody can read those signs. Okay, I am not a believer, and just like with traffic and everything else, is that those things can be very, very expensive. I mean, tickets can cost $200-300. Is that you stop somebody and they've got a safe driving record, they've been driving for a whole bunch of years, it's not aggressive driving, they're just speeding. Is that I believe that you try and do it for education. When you first only talking about one time or two times tops, the rest of it they need to pay up. So it's different.
So, is there a possibility of some sort of, we've been talking about one man house, an auxiliary police force, a volunteer enforcement? I know other cities across the state do this. Is it something that we gotta almost think out of the box, because adding 1, 2, 3 people, I mean, it's big.
Well, what do you, now, if you wanted, if you all, wanted to do with code enforcement or something, is that what you're talking about, or?
Just some different model. I know other cities have auxiliary police force or.
Well, auxiliary police are volunteers. You still have to go to the police academy. You still have to do all those things. We do use some reserves who are former deputies to volunteer, but I'm not sure that that's the answer. Now, if you wanted to have more of a dedicated, we do have a sheriff's citizens volunteer patrol, but they're limited by law. They're limited by law as to what they can do.
Because the way I look at it is, do we really want, while we need to get the barbecues off the beach for we need to get the barbecues off the beach and the dogs on the beach, is that the best use of a sheriff's deputy's time? It's important, it's a quality of life issue, but is there another way we could address
I think it is, because the same deputy that's out there doing that is the same deputy that's going to be citing the people for the alcohol on the beach. The same deputy then a few hours later you can have out here doing traffic. The same deputy you can have in your neighborhoods doing extra patrols. The same deputy that can walk into the businesses. So I think it is, because they can be very versatile and address problems. And there could be something else that is, quote, enforcement related. You guys get complaints, we get information from the city manager, from the commissioners, you want something addressed. So I really do think it is, because they can be versatile and really give you that, again, the maximum from a presence, coverage, and take care of the issues. You want to make sure somebody's got the right training, the right skill set, especially when you're dealing with some of these people, because sometimes the situation escalates very quickly. Yeah.
Can I please say something? I've had my hand up for 10 minutes trying to be patient.
I got you by 20.
I just want one question. Why did that original, you want to call it model, go away? It's one question. And then I want to make a statement, which is, I do want to thank you and your deputies for what you do for us.
Contract negotiations. So it might have been something that was under the Fire City Commission. I can't answer. All I know is that what we were told was this was the model. So I don't think it's as important to me as why that we get this fixed and get it on the right track. So that's kind of how I view it. But I know you guys have newly elected officials out here. You've got some things that have changed. So I think that I don't know the direct answer.
That's fine.
One down. Yeah. Thank you for taking my question. So you talked and kind of stepped around my actual question for the past 10 minutes. It seems like this model is like in a black box behind a curtain. Can you tell me what are the metrics that drive this allocation of resources? You talked about the money and incidents that are reported. What about your actual allocation of personnel? What drives it? Is it population? Because like you pointed out, between tourist season and off season, that's going to change. I'm wondering if the model, does that identify that?
So, right. So what we did when we first in 2013 is that we looked at the city's existing police staffing. We looked at calls for service. And we looked at in the city, okay, this was a city decision in 2013. They were absolutely adamant that they wanted a supervisor down here full time. So they wanted a sergeant. I told you don't need a sergeant at St. Pete Beach full time, but they wanted it. So we made sure that it was a working sergeant position. So based on the calls for service, based upon all the metrics that we looked at with traffic enforcement, other things. So we proposed to them that take the number of deputies that you have based on the calls for service, et cetera, and what's needed, reduce it down to here. And at the same time, we implemented the model I'm telling you about where we supplemented it. It was built into the city's contract that you had this pot of money and we would supplement it with the secondary employment with the off-duty deputies coming down here and working. That's what worked because it was not enough personnel to do all the extras, and the extras were being done by this model. Then when the model changed, we added some of the community policing deputies, but again, the community policing deputies and the cost of them full time, you're getting one person full time where you could have a whole bunch of people for the same cost with higher presence.
And so how do we compare to other communities along the Gulf Coast as far as staffing versus population versus incidents and so forth? Is that a metric that's
well, you're low, but one of the reasons why you're low, like if you take Treasure Island as an example, because you guys also get the benefit, and it's a good thing, it's economies of scale. You also get the benefit of additional sheriff's office resources and sheriff's office deputies that you don't pay for. Because if something happens down here is that our South County units that are assigned to the county areas, they'll come out here and handle it. They'll come out here and back them up. So you're getting a lot of that. So you don't have to have, like Treasure Island, they probably have, I don't know exact numbers they have, but they're going to have detectives. They're going to have other people on because they need to be more self-contained. Clearwater is the same way. So Indian Rocks is an example. Indian Rocks has 2 deputies on, that's it. But there's a lot more going on in Indian Rocks because we supplement it with others. St. Pete Beach is different. There's no other beach community other than Clearwater Beach that has the volume of tourism, the hotels, the condos, the restaurants, all the businesses. So if you looked at around, you looked at a city the size of St. Pete Beach with all that you have out here. So size by geographic size, by population size, by business size, hotels, condos, all the businesses you have, you guys are minimally staffed.
So consider all those things.
Yeah, I think because I still say based on the calls for service and looking at it is that you have enough personnel here to respond to the calls for service, which you don't have. And it's not you don't have is enough personnel to address the issues that you're talking to me about because they can't be in 2 places at once. They can't be down here getting into like you got an area off here that the commissioners talked about where you can't get out of the beach. You can't get there.
We have no beach left.
You have no beach left by walking out there. You can't have the deputy that's wearing this, okay, that's out there, dress into some shorts, get out there in a boat or whatever, and go out there and deal with those issues or walk out there. And then the radio's going off. And 2 minutes later, they got a shoplifting call at Walgreens up on Blind Pass. It doesn't work that way. So you've got to be able to have those people that are flexible and dedicated to some of these specialized things.
We move on.
What's that?
Move on. We need to move on.
Any other questions? Any other questions for Sheriff Altieri?
I'm Sheriff Martin. If we look at details of more which crossing the crosswalk, the people don't stop. And I'm asking, if they don't, the tourists do not go to stop at the crosswalk when the bike is pushed. Will that be possible as well?
Yeah, see, that's all. Exactly. That's where we deal with pedestrian enforcement and dealing with that. That's where they get out there. They can. So you got a game plan for the day. Okay, X number of hours is going to be on the beach. X number of hours with pedestrian enforcement. X number of hours in the neighborhood. X of hours getting out there, walking up and down into the businesses. So all of that, you guys, what happens is you guys come up with a list, you get with the commissioners, you get with the city manager, come up with your list of what you want to address, and then we address it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, so we're going to talk about Mike. So there's all point of boards items that we're going to just try to give you a quick update on some of those items so we can just kind of move it quickly. So on the seawall, Patrick Ridge seawall, I know we put it up for bid, we got bids, right? Bids are very close to being with a budget, so probably in August we awarded the contract for the seawalls. Then we award the contract in August. You're probably going to expect that work to begin October, November, right? Okay, getting where
We got the contract signed, we're waiting for the turtle season to be over with.
and the ready to mobilize, right? November, that work should be quick because it's really not very complicated. Basically, we're going to encase it here, put a lot of gunite on it. Gunite is concrete, liquid concrete is going to stabilize that, and then we'll be opening that probably 2-3 months of actual work. Two, right? Okay. 7th Avenue Pier repairs.
Fire wasn't set up now this year, right?
Contractor's been hired. We've issued the necessary county permits. We're working on the water. We're now in permitting in City Hall. That should take a day. And the contractor is ready to mobilize as soon as he's fully permitted. It's not much of maybe a week's worth of work.
Okay. Alice.
The alleyways, the shell alleyways between 18th and 19th Avenue, we've excavated out and worked on that. The idea is we're bringing in a hexagonal, hard shaped plastic structure that will sit below the shell that will stabilize its lateral and vertical movement. I'd like to know what it looks like after it's been in place for 3 years. Go up to the alleyway between 22nd and 21st Avenue, over there by that small parking lot, the one on the west side. We did that about 3 years ago, and it's held up very, very well. So we now have a design concept basically based on World War II island hopping. How to move through the island to get towards Japan. This is how we did it. We're bringing that back and incorporating that. Here.
Can you scoot down a little bit, please? I'm sorry. The people on Zoom are having a hard time. We need this microphone.
And so that project is underway. Another 2 weeks or so. And that one will be out of the way.
Okay. You want to talk about the garbage collection?
Well, first I wanted to ask. I've been asked a lot by the residents this general question. I wonder if you could give them very briefly the process. I'll give you an example. 5 weeks ago, a resident calls and says a plastic cover on the sidewalk is broken. Someone's going to fall in there and be injured. So I've alerted, I let the city manager know, and code enforcement immediately puts 3 cones over the top of it to make sure no one steps on it. 5 weeks later, if you look across the street on the sidewalk, you see the 3 cones. The folks have been asking me how long the cones stay there and what is the process of Public Works in the laundry list of things that they have to do in this city and how they proceed to get to these things like that.
Great question, and it happens in all kinds of different ways. So any obstruction or any abnormality out there in the infrastructure, give us a call at Public Works. The first thing we do is get the information, of course, and we log it into what's called the work order management system. So we have a record of it, same as the sheriff does, not quite the same. And then we farm that repair out to whoever happens to own that infrastructure. We don't own it all. And so it could be Frontier, it could be Spectrum, it could be County Water, it could be a number of different other utility owners. We know all of them, and we contact them to effect repairs on their system because they own it, it's their stuff. If it's ours, like the sidewalk, the same we have one concrete contractor in the city who does everything for us. including the Shell alleyway that they're working on right now. So it stacks up into a queue, and we'll typically bundle maybe a dozen different locations across the city, and we'll get the contractor one task order, and he'll focus on those dozen or so for a week, and then he'll move on to the next bigger project that we have. So that's kind of how it works. And yes, so it can take 4, 5, 6 weeks for us to cycle back and get to a project like that. But that's just because of how we're structured to accomplish that kind of work, and the only resource that we have to do it.
Thank you.
And we have a question.
It's not a good idea. Somebody has to lay eyes on them and say priority. Somebody's going to do something. That doesn't make sense. Bundle is absolutely not for somebody looking at them and say, this is an input from somebody's going to bring their leg. We're going to be sitting. Get it out done. That's why this is
well, thank you.
I think he was referring about sidewalk repairs. No, what happened over.
No, thank you very much for your observation.
I think whatever is folks thinking that they could, like one person could jump in the truck and run out there and knock it out. And if that's not the way you guys have it set up, are these little smaller jobs where you could send one guy out to do those types of things?
We have 2 people on staff that work all of the streets, signs, sidewalks, cement contract, all these issues. I have 2. All right. So as much as I would like to be able to jump on that, fix it tomorrow, that is not the process that we have with the resources we have. I am not missing the point now. I prioritize them, and this is the way I work, given the resources that I have. Okay. Well, you'd be very surprised at how many people tell me that we're going to be sued, and I have yet to see one. So we're moving on. We've got a couple of lighting projects. One of the lighting projects, I know my good friend Jay, where you at? Waiting on for a while. Thanks for your patience. The lights on the west side of Paso Grill, south of 11th Avenue, when they were energized after the road reconstruction project, all of the residents down there basically said, why do I have Klieg lights in my living room and my bedroom? We de-energized them, and we've been working with Duke Energy to schedule their replacement. We're going to lower the lights to 12 feet, and they'll be the nice amber ones, the same as across on the other side. That will limit the throw distance of the light into the houses. That project is on the books and is scheduled by Duke Energy for their first fiscal quarter, which starts in October. I can't influence that any harder than I already have. So we're trying real hard on that.
Which chance you want to just take those lights out?
They will be replaced. So the 17-foot tall lights will disappear. A 12-foot light will be displaced. And it will be amber lights.
And then I think we're looking at possibly from 1st to 7th on the east side of Gulf Way, where it's very dark from 7th to 5th, very dark over there. We haven't gotten that far yet, but I think.
Right, I'm aware of the request to take a look at that, and if it moves through the capital improvement program for FY24 or sooner, then Public Works is happy to jump on that and work it with Duke Energy and add it to a rather lengthy list of things to do. All lighting.
Just a quick question, where do you think it is a completion time? Where does Duke Energy think it's a completion time?
Well, once they get started, they'll finish in less than a week. Yeah, it's 8 lights. They move very fast once they get going. Trick is once they get going. Anybody live in Vina Del Mar?
Yeah.
I know one person does. There's lights on the ridge. They've been around for a very, very long time. We're working our way through with the Historical Preservation Association to figure out exactly what those replacement lights look like. And we have, I think I'll be appearing before them again the next time that they meet.
Which I think we have Danielle Nicholas here.
And Danielle, thank you. And so we're working our way through what do they look like, and then we'll go ahead and get schedules, get them replaced and whatnot. So,
hey, I got a question. Originally, those lights on our bridge, on the Vina Bridge, were paid for by the association for 27 years.
Would the association like to pony up?
You know, maybe they'll pay some of it.
I have been in contact with the current association representatives, not Danielle yet, but I have not heard that. So if we'd like to entertain that conversation, that's great. So let's talk about these lights real quick. And I know it's not going to be a pleasant, maybe happy conversation, but those lights are globe lights, which means they throw light 360 degrees in all directions. All right, the United States of America is a signature to what's called the Dark Skies Treaty. It's not a great mandatory thing.
State of Florida.
And so moving forward, it has been my policy as Public Works to do our very best to comply with dark skies. Doesn't do anybody any good to light the sky because there's nobody up there looking at it. Light needs to be used for the purpose for which it needs to be at that location. So we have security and we have transportation mobility. And so we're looking for lights that accomplish good security, good transportation mobility, not disturbing the marine life that's all around them, and not violating dark skies compliance. So those criteria are kind of the overarching criteria that we're looking for, a really nice fixture that the homeowner association, all the residents, everybody else will like. And so we're kind of trying to thread that needle and balance it out. So that's kind of where we're at. There's a third lighting project. Yes, ma'am.
Do you have budget for those lights?
Yes, we did. In our operations budget, we have a line item for stuff like that. There's another lighting project that is Gulf Way, that side, from 1st Avenue to 22nd. All of those lights have aged out and will be replaced pretty much at the same time as the other lights in October, November timeframe. Not at no cost to the city because they've aged out. We've already paid for their life. And so we're going to get new lights down there. They will also be turtle friendly, compliant. They'll look pretty much the exact same as they do now. So those are the lighting projects that I know of down here. Cycling back to the alleyway real quick. One of the reasons why, well, one of the biggest reasons we have issues with the Shell alleyways and all that shell moving is because of our trash collection. So our Waste Connections partners have asked me to let you know that we are seriously going to ask and consider that we all get together and we pull those big monster trucks out of the Shell alleyways. They're getting damaged. Their employees are getting injured. It's no longer safe. We've had to shut down 3 other alleyways in the city for the same reasons. And so it's a real mix up down here. Some folks bring their trash and recycling to the street already. Others enjoy the alleyway backdoor service. So we're looking very hard at, in the not too distant future, pulling those big monster vehicles out of your Shell alleys and asking you to bring your garbage and your recycling to the nearest street location. Absent any serious backlash, I'm going to go ahead and implement that next month. Thank you very much for your cooperation. I'm going to move on.
Would you be looking at vacating the back alleys then?
No, vacation of the city alleyway is a charter issue. So no, we would not vacate them.
Yeah, the mid alleys, the one in behind the house.
Yeah, what we're trying to really do is wait for the trucks. This is what's creating the.
Yeah, I understand the problem. Going down the road, but there's a back alley that, you know, a lot of times are garbage dragged down.
Yeah,
You're a knit,
that would have to be assessed on a case by case basis because it depends. Always on the housing, you know, we need the right of way for it.
We're looking at a new boat ramp at the Don Cesar location. So we are in what's called a feasibility study right now. We received a grant, which is great. It's not our money, it's our bigger money. And the feasibility study is looking at 2 locations. The existing location, how do we rehabilitate that? Or the second location, which is right around the corner on Cabrillo, there at the end where you make that L turn. That's the other alternative. The city does have enough land that we think is viable, but the study will give us more information. We're looking at receiving the results of that study this September. And so we'll publish all that. We'll have a public meeting. We'll talk about it. The grant cycle continues again. So we could ask, depending on how we, the community, decide to move forward, we will ask for the second round of grant funding to finalize the design for the concept that we select. And then we're hoping that that is a design construction grant. And so in FY25, perhaps, we will be doing something to a boat ramp at one of those two locations.
And depends on the decision of the commission. One of the options could be closing the ramp. Because I know some people in the community have asked for that. That decision had not been made very clear because it is, some people are advocating for that. I just wanted you guys to be aware that that is within the decision of rebuilding or not. It is an option that the commission has. But what we know is that the current situation doesn't work. It's driven by any time there's high tide, the entire intersection is flooded because that ramp sits too low. Well, if you think as to, well, can you just raise the ramp? That means that you have to raise the ramp. That means that you have to raise the entire intersection, and then you have to conform that intersection to all of the roads that are coming into it. So if you start thinking as to how that project flows, it is a complicated project, and that's what they're looking at. You know, different options on how to do it, and everything else. It is clearly it's something that's been around in San Luis for many, many years. A lot of people use it, but you know, it's going to cost upwards of $500,000 to $1 million to redo that board ramp to make it work properly. Yes.
Yeah, I just want to say, I think I did kind of an unofficial survey, and I guess I'll be one of the folks that heads up to say about the ramp thing that's going to happen. I can tell you the vast majority do not want that ramp closed. And, you know, I feel for the people that bought homes over in Mount Star Place, but that ramp's been there, I think we figured out 60 years now. It's the same flooding that's always been there. So I'm just asking the commissioners, one commissioner mayor we got here, two, sorry, three, maybe three. I can't see. I don't want to see the back ahead. Think really carefully about that. There's going to be a lot of people that are watching this with intense interest. The vast majority that want to keep our boat ramp open. I think everyone would be happy if you build a new one in Cabrillo. It's feasible. You know, you get all kinds of utilities in there.
Oh yeah,
that's not going to happen. But anyway, do not please. I know not everybody, vast majority, but please don't think about closing the ramp and then saying we're going to build a new one later.
No.
We don't know how that goes.
Correct. Yes, I agree with you. 100%.
All right, so stand by. The results will be shared, Sarah, on our website for everybody, and then I'm sure we'll have a public meeting.
We'll have a public. Just to make a little note, I mean, that takes care of almost the south end of St. Beach. Yeah, if you close that boat ramp, you're going to get boats.
Just do my part. Don't look at him when they're.
No, I got it. We'll look at it.
Yes, I know.
So we'll look at you guys. So just so everybody knows, the consultants will give us the report. It will be submitted to the commission, I assume, at a commission meeting, which will be properly noticed. Nothing will happen until the residents have input.
And the consultants
will have a workshop.
The consultants are looking at two rebuild options. Okay, current location, Cabrillo. The consultant is not looking at closing. Closing of the ramp is a political decision that will be made by the community and the community's representatives, which is the city commission. So, but that's not a technical decision that he and his consultants are looking at.
Don't explain.
That's what I say. It's like, no,
don't worry that in the dark of night, there's going to get closed.
That's how it operates.
And the truck's just going to fill it up, and then in the morning, go like, nobody told us.
Traffic down Gulf Boulevard.
I think the point's been well made. So,
thank you. Oh, sure. I know everybody's been waiting to see what's going to happen with the nourishment. It was originally supposed to happen this fall. Then we got notice that the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers had changed their position in terms of what they need in terms of being able to do nourishment, that they needed perpetual easements on the properties along that corridor. Fortunately, the county met with them, and we got notice that they are being able to separate the Treasure Island project from the St. Pete Beach project because Treasure Island has a lot of problems with obtaining easements. There's only one area in St. Pete Beach that would require easements, which is the Silver Sands area. And I reach out to them. They're really not interested in granting a perpetual easement. We're going to try to get something in writing from them saying that because God forbid, if your thing happens 10 years from now, their beach disappears, they're going to be raising their hand and say, can you renourish our beach? Once they make that decision, and it's going to be 100% up to them. If they don't grant that, U.S. Army Corps is going to say, not in our scope anymore. They really define the scope, but then they can really begin and doing Upland Beach and Passage Road. Okay, so I think the county has done a great job for us separating those projects in a way that our project is doable.
Is there a way that you can ballpark a time frame on wrapping up this Silver Sands thing? I mean, everybody's starting to get anxious, especially about the south part of Passage Road.
Yes, and whatever day I give you is going to be wrong, but I think early 2024 is probably what you're going to be looking at.
I would take 3 to 4 months.
Okay.
The Grand Canal Dredge.
I don't know about that one, so go ahead.
I just got word from the county that the Grand Canal down here on the south side is going to be dredged as a county project, perhaps in the next 5, 6 months or so, 7. And that sand will, I guess, deemed compatible to Pascagoula, would be placed from First Avenue North or from the 8th Avenue concession stand south. So look for that to come independent of everything else going on. Pass your thanks on to the county. For those of you that attended the Pascagoula Road reconstruction projects with Jim and myself and the city manager, I thank you for checking your pitchforks and torches at the door.
Okay, Jennifer has got, starting with beach ordinance.
Well, last year when we had this district board meeting, we did talk about a beach ordinance that we were looking at changing items related to the beach. We are still working on that. We're getting close to the end, hopeful. Next week, we have another meeting to go over that. So it addresses things like cabanas and umbrellas and classes on the beach, businesses that are popping up on the beach and having some control over some of that. So we've been working through that with the commission, with the beach stewardship board, and we hope to kind of push that over the finish line here in the next couple months. So that's just an update on that. When I pulled up this agenda from last year, that was on there. Next on there is so I didn't bring enough copies. Sorry, you guys overwhelmed with how many people are here. But I have a copy of the last design. It's a design that we're loosely going off of. We're not going with some of the trees. We went out there with our parks guys. If you guys noticed the last couple of weeks, they dropped a dumpster, cleaned up, trimmed, started to spruce things up. So, we heard through the community meetings, less is more with this park. So we're really not doing a whole lot. We are going to add some shade trees, a couple more palms to kind of line the streets on the right of way where feasible. And we're really focusing on the intersections. So that's what you're going to kind of see in the design. There's going to be pavers at the intersections in front of Paradise Grill, there between 9th and 10th, and then pavers on the other side on Pascagoula Way. There will be crosswalks that will be lined with the bricks that will go across. We are looking at keeping where we have the golf cart parking. We will look at eliminating the parking that's directly in front of the grill and taking the sidewalk out, making it a bump out. So the road, which is pretty wide when you go out there, is going to be a little narrower. And then we'll have to find crosswalks there. Because right now you kind of just walk anywhere.
Yeah, so basically the road is going to be limited between 9 and 10 to those 2 lanes of traffic. Okay, that way, you know, when people are crossing that, either to look for parking or to go to the avenue businesses, it is a much safer intersection to cross. That's one of the objectives. And by putting the pavers, there was going to be some visual notice to people saying, okay, I'm getting to a different area, or I need to be more cautious because there's a lot of pedestrian flow around the area, and it's important that we improve that pedestrian safety there.
And that will align with the project Mike was talking about earlier about Gulfway and the repayment of that. So it'll hopefully line up with that project when that gets done. So like I said, I 11 copies are out there, but I'd be happy to meet with anybody, walk the park with you, if you'd like any more information, just definitely contact me.
And is that also on our website?
It can't be. But again,
it will be.
This design is not what's happening. If you look at the intersections, yes.
Right.
Yeah. What else is on there?
Historic Preservation Board guidelines.
So we've been working with the Historic Preservation Board on a couple of things. We have a resolution ready to go. We were going to do it this month with the commission meeting, but we want the chair, Bill Lowry, many of you know, is the chair of that board, and he's been out of town. So he will be back at the end of this month. We will have that at an August meeting, and it basically codifies things that the Historic Board oversees, makes recommendations on, and would like to see in Pass the Grill. We've also been working with them on updating an overlay. So the contractual consultant we had to do the overlay originally, we have back a year and a half. We've been working on this and getting input and talking through many workshops, many meetings. She has given us a draft. We have responded. We have a meeting with her next week. That is going to be presented to the Historic Preservation Board at the September meeting. The recommendations, and to have them talk about the changes that she heard them that they wanted to do, and see what that looks like on paper. And it's a couple things to clean up too, so we can better do reviews and things of that nature. So those are two big things that are kind of happening in this area with the Historic Preservation Board. I'm happy with the progress, and it looks like we're getting there too as well. So the resolution should be done on August, and the first draft, I guess, of some changes to the overlay will happen in September. So just keep an eye out on that.
Right. Item 12, I think we got excited and we repeated the item, so that's already covered. And then item is events and happenings. City, might as well cover that.
Well, we're in summer, and so we don't have a lot of city events. The next is the big concert series that happens in October. So when I was talking to Cheryl, I know the Pasco Community Association does their own events with the movies. The blow-up screen we have, that is always available to any neighborhood or any organization for us to drop off and help coordinate with. So those are some of the things. The library, I will cover that for Betsinda. But they, at the table, there was a list of stuff that they have going on. They're gonna start bringing back, saw the officers here. They do a donut day the first Wednesday, I think, of every month. So we are gonna have the CPOs come to each of those every month. So they are available for the public. But you can check out all the fun library stuff that we have out there. There really is some cool things, especially for the kiddos this time of year during the summer. And if you don't have a pool, our aquatic center is the place to be this time of year. So, yes. Oh, yes, back to school bash. I guess Jim probably can talk to it more than that. It's fire department initiated, but they are taking in donations through July 29th. There will be an event in the park from 10 to 12, and we're taking donations that will be then delivered to the Gulf beaches where they're, we were in a meeting before the summer started. I think that kind of spawned some of this, and we do have kids that go to Gulf beaches that are actually living out of their cars, and that is rampant throughout Pinellas County with the housing and people getting kicked out of their houses and just inflation. So we have kids that are going to the school right here that will be in need for some school supplies. So we're doing the drive. You could drop it off currently at the fire station or the library. You can come to the event to drop it off as well. And then we've got a team that will be doing the delivery. Anything else? Okay. Yeah.
I kind of glanced over this and I was curious what your comment was. Number 8 of the ordinances, you mentioned the bans and umbrellas. Is that relative to commercial businesses using them, or is that
all of the above? So we're trying to address ones that are on our public beach, right? We're trying to address those that are behind the hotels. And then you have the Cabana Club, the cute pink, you've probably seen that come out here, they set it up, there's the little Yetis, they put the chairs out, right? We have nothing that can like help us with a policy to be able to control that currently.
Those are completely unregulated right now. We have to see complaints. It's like, can you give them a violation? No, we have nothing that covers that because there's nothing that covers those kind of business activities on the beach. So we're looking to do the registration and an approval program for that. because like many things in life, a few of them are probably cute and don't bother anybody, but you don't really want a proliferation of those things all throughout the beach, because if you overcome the access to the beach, and if you start doing the cabana, that they selling you water, that they selling you this, they don't, and we need to have some control as to how much activity goes on the beach. So,
enforce that.
Huh?
Who's going to enforce
with that, yeah. Okay, right. That can be done by our enforcement people, because those operators are going to require to have a permit. Same way that today we enforce beach weddings, for example. So beach weddings are regulated and controlled by our people, because there are a few companies that do this, and we can deal with the companies when, directly when something is not done right. It's different than individual behavior. Corporate behavior is easy to regulate than individual behavior. So it will be through that.
Is there a draft of the new beach ordinance that has been shared? I looked on the website.
If you go under, we had a workshop on the 11th at 4 o'clock. That would be on, it would be on that agenda. And then we have one coming up next week, and that will also be available through that meeting. That's where it'd be on the website. I don't think it's put anywhere else other than tied to the workshops that we've been discussing. Yeah.
Or I can attend the meeting as
Absolutely.
Thank you, Jennifer. Fire station 22. So let me just try to go quickly, Jim. As you all probably know, that we had said one year I received a $2 million grant from the state to redo fire station 22. The architect basically prepared two different design concepts. Those concepts went to the city commission, and they went to the historic board. Both the historic board and commission agree on the same design concept. So they are now pursuing the next phase of design for that. That design concept required them to obtain variances of both setbacks, FAR, and median purpose surface ratios as well. In order to complete the package for the variances, they need to bring the design, the outside of the design to about 60%, the inside design to about 30%. So we are working for them to give us a quote to complete that level of work. Then that will come to the city commission for approval of the next work order phase. Then they'll be able to complete the package. So the whole design and approval process is probably going to take the better part of a year. So I won't see really any construction activity beginning until about October of 2024. Now, we're having some additional money in the budget because as we got better estimates from the architects, the price is moving north, like most prices, So we got to allocate additional money for that. Anything else on this?
Yeah.
Thank you. And Michelle Gonzalez was out sick today, so she was going to cover parking and short-term rentals.
Let's just talk about parking just for a second.
Sure.
Right? I just want to remind everybody the ClickFix app that you can access on the beach, the city's website. If you have a complaint about somebody parking in a spot they're not supposed to be on, you can click onto that app and you can report it, and it will let our code enforcement officer know. I've been getting the phone numbers for the code enforcement officers who are on duty and calling them directly sometimes, because you know how it gets out here on the weekend. People are parking and filling the parking lot at the Warren Webster and going to the beach. That's $1,000 worth of tickets right there. So I know people sometimes are afraid to give their identity. It's kind of one of those, they ask you who you are that's complaining or reporting. Some people say, I just don't want to leave my name. If you don't want to leave your name, see if you can, we know who the parking enforcement officers are on the weekends. You get their cell numbers, they will answer the phone, and they'll come out here and give a ticket.
And we are going to be adding 3 part-time code enforcement officers. And they're going to basically be focused on the weekends and on holidays, because that's when we really get overwhelmed. And the commissioner is right that I think we can easily recover the salaries of these officers.
So I'm going to say one more thing about parking too. RVs. You see them out here, you look at them and you say, that doesn't seem right. Why is that RV out here? If you don't say something, nothing's going to get done. People are living on Paso Grill in RVs. We saw one the other day that code enforcement went and checked with them.
Police went. And then that same RV 2 days later was across the street from the Hurricane on the north side using the EV to charge at 10 minutes to 10 that night. Okay, charging up because they have a mini split in the back. It's all electric. And they're all their windows covered up, not so they could drive. They're spending the night out here. But if you don't report it, I can't get it to the sheriff's office or to code so that we can start identifying these people. They're all repeat offenders, but they just keep coming out here. They don't want to spend the money at Fort Soto or go to campsites. They want to wake up on Paso Grill Way. And if you don't say anything, nothing's going to happen. So you can go on the ClickFix app, or you can call the sheriff's office, non-emergency, and say, look, someone's camping out here. Can you please send an on-duty deputy out there? I've already talked to them about, they want to do wellness checks. They say, there's a lady sleeping out here in her car every night. I said, tell her, you'll give her the directions to the Walmart, and she can put her car in the Walmart parking lot every night. She's out here every single night sleeping in her car.
Commissioner Moran, it's ClickFix.
ClickFix. Thank you.
You have to be careful there. There's one that's county and the other is South Beach.
ClickFix. The letters. No. SCE.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I just need to quit.
Yes, we are allowed to speak there.
Let's do that.
Right. That's what they always is going to get stressed on that. I feel always thinking.
Some of them have on the ground permit.
Correct.
But they don't have.
Correct.
Oh, okay.
Yes, yes. So we started doing that. We're working through Public Works. What we found was that compliance ratios have gone way up when we put permit on the asphalt. I don't know, people, maybe you were not seeing the signs, wherever it is, but it does have an effect when we actually print that on the asphalt. And so we're going around through the entire Paso Grill area and put permit on all the ones. Eventually, we will have it.
We have signs that sometimes the signs in one area and sometimes not. So when we say you can park in that spot because there is a sign nearby, a lot of people end up pointing that spot park.
That's the permit. You know, basically to send the ClickFix because it's case by case. We need to go to that area and see if we need to try the signs.
You'll see inconsistency throughout the city as to how parking is addressed from signage standpoint and everything. And it's just, I think it'd take a while to get it to some level.
Can you just, my vehicle I know there's like 7 a.m. or so we want to do get the permits on our streets.
We're trying to set up the process with Public Works that will notify you. Okay, so we're going to go street by street and tell people, please keep your cars off this area tomorrow so we can come back.
Can they do that for street cleaning too? Because street cleaning here sucks.
Yeah.
These are big lines, right?
Yeah.
North out, let's say, and south out, sometimes there's it's always a second Thursday.
Can you say it louder?
They can't hear you now, Mike.
Yeah.
With street cleaning.
Go all the way so you can capture.
Street sweeping. It's always the same 2 days of the month, north half of the city, south half of the city. And it's the second Thursday, and they're usually here on the Wednesday also, or sometimes they slip to Friday. They have their schedule also. You know, if the driver calls in, I can't control it sometimes, but then that Thursday.
There you go. I like that idea.
So a lot of folks would like the city to own a street sweeper. No, I will tell you that
I have one street sweepers, they break down all the time.
I ran 9 street sweepers in Davenport. I was lucky to get 5 on the street, and I had full-time mechanics just for those vehicles. That's how tough they are. So we would not be well served financially by pulling that project in-house. We can do better, and my idea has always been perhaps that street sweeping is tied to your recycling. So if I can get the whole city reorganized to go on Wednesday, and you think, it's the second Wednesday of the month, I'm recycling, I should move my car also. And so I'm looking at that philosophical shift, kind of line those two things up, and maybe we can get better, maybe we can improve. So I'm working on that.
Okay. Yeah, might as well.
Gulf Way from 1st to 22nd, including 9th and 10th Avenue, is the next big paving project for the city. Okay, probably in the winter sometime, maybe January timeframe. It's a big project. As you know, it's very, very flat, and a number of you have ponds in front of your avenues and your areas. So we're using a telemetry, a state telemetry. And so the surveyors are out there now, and it's going to be very, very precise because we're very flat. The stormwater has to go from there to here, all down through the avenues. There's no collection on Gulf Way. I always think Gulf wins. And so what that will allow us to do is use automated paving equipment. So the equipment itself will not be necessarily, it'll be driven by a person, but how the machine operates and where the blades are and where the angles are, that's all going to be driven by a computer. And so the operator will move along. The control points will be set to tell the machine exactly how to tilt and exactly how to plane. And so we're hoping to get a much more precise elevation so that our stormwater management system works a lot better for everybody.
Now, as we're doing that project, we are going to be reaching a decision point as to what we do with the parking sensors, because the parking sensors right now are there. We put the parking sensors as a try to address the needs of the community where we got complaints that people were driving around the entire Pasadena area looking for.
I'm the one complaining.
Okay, maybe you, maybe. Yeah. So it hasn't helped, right? The contract is expiring, and they need to be removed when we do the resurfacing anyway. So the contract will expire early next year, and then we can remove that. And that's the discussion that we have with the commissioner. That at that point they just going to, it was an attempt to solve the problem. If the community feels that it hasn't helped, then there's no need to maintain that. Okay. Thank you, Mark.
I don't know what contract costs.
Yeah, it's about $20,000 a year. So about $20,000 a year, I think, is the maintenance. I'll have to get back to you on that. I'll get to that now. Okay. Short-term rentals. Yeah, we got short-term rentals. About 8 months ago, we changed the approach with the special master as to how short-term rentals were being enforced. And the new special master has allowed us to use comments made on the sites as proof that people stay there. The prior special master did not really think that was to say that somebody has stayed in a location. So, VRBO and all of those other sites have areas where you can post comments, but they require you to have been there to be able to post a comment. So we're using those comments that get posted on the different sites and being able to take cases to the special master. We're right now processing, I think it's like 5 or 6 times more cases that we used to process before. And hopefully you have seen at least a little reduction in the amount of short-term rental activity going on in the area. Because we see that it's a problem. The state has limits in terms of what we can change in the ordinance, and we cannot make the ordinance more strict. So we got to basically play with the hand that we've been dealt. And in Pascagoula, it was always complicated because people were entitled to 3 times a year. So basically, you have to catch them 4 times before you took the case in. Now, like being able to look at the comments is a lot easier to actually catch the people that are staying there and have a lot more cases that we're processing.
I will say, I will say that is probably the one issue that people are the most concerned about reporting, because they don't want their names and they don't want to be dragging some magistrate hearing. But if you can give enough information to code enforcement about what you're seeing, and I mean, some of these places, they're renting every week. It's like a hotel. It's like like living in a motel. You see it every week. If you know it and you see it and you don't say something, code enforcement's not going to just keep driving around and see if it looks like someone is renting there. We've got to report it. Otherwise, they're not going to investigate it. So,
unfortunately, state law changed, it was 2 years ago, maybe already 3 years ago, and it now requires that you take a name with a complaint. Okay? It used to be that people have anonymous complaints. That is not the case anymore. However, we don't validate the name. We will fight the name of the complaint because we need to have a name.
So what is the actual? What is the guidelines that should be followed 3 times a year? They still
it changes by the different districts in the city. So if you see from
here on Pascagoula, what is
I believe everything in Pascagoula is 3 times a year.
For how long?
For rentals less than a month.
Less than a month. Is that the same in Del Mar?
No, VNAD has a different rules.
What is that?
I don't think anything less than a month is allowed.
Three times a year.
In VNAD, no. No, you're not allowed. First time you get a violation. Right. And the first time your violation is $250 a day. And the second child will be the offender is $500 a day.
No limits.
I think there should be some clarity. There are a few properties in Pascagoula that are grandfathered for turnarounds. So
yes,
put some clarity there. And then secondly, just going over our beaches, Chamber of Commerce, it's our income tax, our paying tax person is already down 8%. So what you're doing is working because we're no longer getting the income tax from that additional whatever. I think it's 7 or 8%, 7%.
But we don't get that. We don't get any.
The county
does, right?
The county, and then it winds up coming back, and then there's a penny for Pinellas, which helps us with our cement, whatever. Anyways, it's already down 8% just for, I'm just reading the detail here, for May alone. So that's for the May report, and all in all for it's down, in April was down $800,000. So it's working, what you all are doing with these code enforcement and stuff like that. So just to put some clarity there.
Yeah, and she's right. There are so many specific properties that have been grandfathers because they have had that use prior to when the ordinance went into effect. Yes,
Alex, I was going to ask when you speak about a maritime ordinance.
Yeah, sure. Yes, go ahead.
Okay. So my name's Dean Worker. I live across the street. I think Alex, you were helping me. I want to put together a petition. I've lived here since 1967. across the waterway over here already and back and forth, permanent residents here. And I've seen a lot of increase in road traffic, unfortunately speeding, putting a lot of people in hazardous positions, whether in their kayaks or in paddle boards, single boats, with young men, mostly leaving some wood bars are up the street here, and then heading south past Mary Pier and down past the Dog Beach. And I was going to ask, I have a petition that I would like to submit to the commissioners, the mayor, and I think maybe here, just asking for consideration of enacting reduction in speed whenever voters leave the Pascagoula Marina area where there's only a middle lake zone. But just ask for reduction in speed until they get to the mouth of the Pascagoula Channel. Similar to what the ordinance is for folks who cannot taper up next to the beach on the Gulf side. Those buoys you see out there all the way past the Don Cesar. So, if you have a few moments afterwards, I'll have the clipboards over here. Sign it. Submit it in August to the commissioners. Ask for the consideration.
And just to support what he's doing, because the final decision doesn't rest with the commission. The commission basically has the right to make recommendations to the state on changing the speeds. So any community support that they can get in order to be able to deliver that for you really goes a long way in terms of going to be able to go to the state reps and go to the state and say, this is an issue that the community is 100% behind. Look at all the signatures that we have. So that's a good effort that you're doing. Thank you for that.
I agree with that. That we have to sign the petition because I also South End boat traffic, the little jungle boat and horse come on, stand paddle board, all of them get hurt. Well, push this back for a long time. In all defense, I understand this. From Corps of Engineers, from Fish and Wildlife, the city, and everyone does this at the same time. And I understand that everyone's kind of like pushing the ball away, but what's going to take to actually have something change? That's the thing. We will sign a petition, that's great, but it's got to, someone has to initiate.
Correct. Yes.
No government policy.
Yeah, no, our plan, and all plans, always often go array, but it was to finish the beach ordinance first and then go into the waterways ordinance, which is a complementary ordinance to the beach. So everything that happens on the sand is part of the beach ordinance. Once you go from the sand to the wet area, that is covered by the waterways ordinance. Waterways essentially covers two things. It sets up the swimming areas in front of the Gulf of Mexico, and it sets up the buoys and how what areas can be used by motorized boats come in and out, so creates channels for them to come in and out and protect people from swimming. On the back side, basically it sets up the speeding regulations and how close you can be to seawalls and docks and everything else. So now that we are in the final phases, hopefully this time, with the beach ordinance, we'll jump into the waterways ordinance. Now the waterways ordinance, the way it happens is it gets adopted by the commission on first reading. Then we take all of that information and ship it out to the state. And that's where this petition is going to be handy, and ship it out to them and say, are you okay with the changes that we're going to do here? They will say yay or nay and send it back. So,
hi, Alice. I heard a letter to the expansion for the Harvard Complex straight across the church. So we're putting in 6 boat slips right in the channel there by the Nita Bridge. And the Fish and Wildlife's response back was, we can't do anything until the city requests it. I have it in writing.
To put offsets?
To change the ordinances in no ways, the safety zone.
That's exactly what I said.
So the city's not doing anything. So you prioritize it down here.
So after the beach ordinance, you go with the waterways issue. Yeah.
Let me also just add, this affects the manatees.
Yes.
So it's another reason to sign the petition. And if anybody's got any ideas about how else to move this along, I'm married to this gentleman for all years, but the manatees are affected as well.
I'm disappointed the city is, again, all I hear is pointing fingers. And Fish and Wildlife and the state says, I have to hear from the city, you're telling me it's down here on your priorities, you have to do something else. Someone's gonna die.
So I've been out here almost over 50 years. The accidents that I've seen are running into that jetty out there at night. That's the accidents that I've seen. Is there a massive boat problem out here? It's affecting our seawalls on busy weekends, very large boats, planing out, kids running their boats right up by the seawall. It is a problem. People planing it up. Yeah.
You're supposed to be 200 feet off the seawall.
But sometimes when you say priorities, I understand what you're saying is like one person gets hurt, it should have been done yesterday. But when you look at the whole of it, saying that you're not prioritizing or it doesn't matter, it's kind of what you're saying, it doesn't matter. I don't think that's what the city's saying.
You're absolutely right. But when we hear that I have this, I have this, and I have this, and you lived here for how many years? We've lived here for 12. It's ongoing, and you're going to put it in a 6-foot boat thing right down from the marina in a high traffic area where the no wake zone holds. You can't see them until you're on top of them. When you come around from East Phoenix to West Phoenix into the bridge, it doesn't need to be a challenge. But at the same time, the lack of information is not like John. What I'm hearing is it takes a fatality to have attention.
Just like the red light over by forcing so it won't happen.
I mean, look at the survey.
It started. We got something to get started, so let's get the ball rolling.
Anybody else? Little over, but.
What is the current speed?
There is multiple different speeds. There is a map that.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Okay,
but
yes, because
it's not a no wake zone right here. Like there's a wake zone starts at the
Correct. Right.
So this, I mean, it's still more of
The waterways?
No, not waterways. So I was at the technical meeting this morning.
Okay. Oh, yes, I saw you.
So as you know, residents regulate.
Guys, please.
Everybody's doing business. So I had a couple of questions. So my question is, for those architectural drawings, were those absolute max as if we had
Okay. I'm going to have to stop you and have a one-on-one conversation with you on this because they are going to be filling out quite a traditional role in terms of what the approval or not approval of that conditional use permit. So I want to make sure that.
So that drawing was maximum or it was.
I give you my phone number and we'll get together and we'll talk about that. I don't want to create a problem. Yeah. Okay. Well, if not, thank you for coming.
Yeah, it's a big spread.
Told me that I know you have to take it, I know you have to 15%, but I don't know if it's
You know what? The discussion. Is everybody still on this? And I would like you to go. And once it's on a discussion, so the commission meeting say,